Hi guys, so a bit of a random video that we're going to be doing today, but one that we're really excited about. If you've been following along with our journey, you know that we have started a pretty fair scale size mealworm farm to feed our chickens that we've kind of been providing progress updates on. And we actually had one of our followers make a suggestion and comment on one of our posts to read a study that was done by Stanford University on mealworms being able to digest and eat styrofoam packaging as a way to deal with that waste rather than putting it back into the landfills. I know there are ways to recycle this now in a lot of areas, but we were really intrigued by it. And the study is basically that mealworms will eat this sort of styrofoam packaging and fully digest it to a point where the mealworms are also still edible to feed to your chickens. So the only catch to that is, I'm not even going to try and pronounce the chemical name, but it is a chemical HBCD, is kind of the abbreviated term that's commonly used, that's added to a lot of styrofoam, which is basically a flame retardant. And so the only downfall, I guess, to the process right now is that that chemical still does end up in their poop, which is called frass for mealworms. So you cannot use that as a compost. Right now in our mealworm, we'll show you a little bit later, but that frass that they produce or their poop is a really good compost source for us that we put under our plants when we're planting them. So it's kind of a double whammy. We feed our chickens the mealworms, and then we use that frass for the compost. So we're gonna be doing an experiment. We're gonna be putting a ton of our mealworms into this bin to see how they eat the styrofoam. The only downfall, like I said, is that we will have to throw out their poop or their waste as that chemical is added to the styrofoam is still left in that, so not suitable to be going into your plants that you're going to be consuming. So it's too bad that they add that chemical in, because otherwise you would be able to do both as they fully digest the styrofoam that's used. So it's kind of a cool little experiment. We wanted to try it here on our own. We'll definitely put the link down below to the study from Stanford so you can read that in a little bit more detail. But we'll get into adding some mealworms in here and sorting them in and kind of do a bit of a timed update on that process and how it works. So this is one of our mealworm bins. It's pretty established with some mature mealworms. Those are at a pretty good size there. And as you can see, these kind of little particles here, we haven't sifted them out in a while, are their poop or their frass. So that's what I was talking about there. So these ones haven't been fed any styrofoam yet, so we'll be using these little bits to add into our compost and plant under our plants for a really good fertilizer. What we feed our mealworms is bran, wheat bran. You can feed them oats or any kind of grains really that they'll digest. So that's their food. They've eaten it all up. They eat it, go through it really quickly. So that's all kind of turned into poop, and there's no food in there now for them. So they're nice and hungry, which is what we wanted. Also, mealworms don't really drink. They get their fluids from eating things like potatoes or vegetables. You can put carrots in there, so you can see that's why that potato is in there. So that's where they get their fluids from and their water. We are not going to be adding a water source into their styrofoam bin just because we want them to focus on that. Otherwise they'll probably spend most of their time on a potato if we put that in there. So we are going to start sifting out some of these mealworms and get them into the styrofoam bin, and are really curious to see if they digest this styrofoam and we find the same results, and how fast they'll go through it. So we'll get to sifting these into our styrofoam bin. right, so we've got our mealworms in our bin here, and hopefully they are kind of eating away. It's definitely an interesting sound. We'll see if we can get some good audio for you. I'm not sure if it's just them crawling over it or actually eating it, but they're all going to kind of be on the bottom, which we'll try and show you there. But yeah, we'll kind of do updates every hour here on how they're progressing and coming along, and see if they do eat it and how much. We feel bad if we didn't go feed our chickens some while we got our mealworms out, so we're going to take these up and give a little treat to our chickens as well. Okay, good little treat for them. You see how much they like them. So, like I said, we'll keep you posted on that and keep checking in and let you know how it works out. Okay, it has now been 12 days since we started our little experiment here to have our mealworms break down and digest some styrofoam that we have for some packaging. Like we said at the beginning, this was based off a really cool study that was done by Stanford University to see if mealworms could help with breaking down styrofoam, which normally decomposes very, very slowly on its own. So we are 12 days in. They've pretty much gone through all of the styrofoam here. There are a few tiny bits that are left, but we're not going to worry too much about that. We're going to sift these out and put them back into a separate bin for another week or so. From the Stanford study that they did, they said if you wait 48 hours, all of the styrofoam and the chemical flame retardant will be out of their system. But we're just going to give it an extra bit of time because we're not in a rush before we feed that to our chickens again. One thing that we found quite interesting was that about 50% of the mealworms turned into pupa, which is the next stage of their life cycle, which was kind of interesting. We took these mealworms from this same exact bin here, and probably, far less of these, probably only 20% went through to their next life cycle into the pupa stage. I'm guessing that's probably because it moved up into a warmer environment and didn't have anything to do with the styrofoam, and was just because they were up in our house and on our deck, which is a lot warmer than where we normally keep these in the basement. But still a little bit of an interesting fact. So we are going to sift these out. You can kind of see through here just their frass or their poop. You can almost see like the little white bits for the decomposed styrofoam that have gone through their digestive system. So we're going to sift all that out. And like we mentioned at the beginning, it will not be going into our garden. Their frass could still contain some chemicals from that flame retardant that we don't want to put into our soil and go back into our plants. So we will be throwing that out, but it's obviously broken down a far lot more than it would be of just throwing your styrofoam into the dump. So we're actually going to separate these into two bins. The pupa will go into one. They'll let continue on into beetles to continue our mealworm cycle. The mealworms will go into another bin separate from any other ones, where they will stay for another week, eat some more bran and things to get through their digestive system, make sure they've worked all that out, and then we will feed them to our chickens. So like we said, a bit of a random video this week, but we found it super interesting when we saw that study and learned that mealworms could do this and have no effect on them long term, and we could still feed them to our chickens. So we're glad we tried it. We'll definitely probably try it again, maybe with a block of styrofoam or anything we get in future packaging that we want to break down. We hope you found this useful. Any questions or comments, or if you've tried this or are going to try this, or anything you want to know, leave us a question below. Please help us out and like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys next week for another video.